Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Timothy here with Jank Diver Gaming, and today we've got something super exciting going on. This is going to be an intro video to a playlist where we will be featuring a rotisserie draft that we just finished up on our Discord server with our community. We'll talk about what Roto Draft is for those who don't know about it. We'll showcase the deck that I ended up drafting and that I'm going to be playing. And then the rest of this play match will actually be the matches against the other community members that Roto Draft with us. So this is super exciting. I have heard from people that they want to see actual Cube content on the Cube related YouTube channel. So that's what we're going to do. And this should give you a nice little peek at all of the things that are possible within the Unrestricted Cube, which is, for those who don't know, our rare slash mythic rares cube, as opposed to our peasant cube, which we also run and might be doing a roto draft of sometime in the future. Before we go ahead and look at the deck that I drafted and go over the kind of details of how Rotisserie Draft work, I want to remind everybody that you can subscribe to this channel for more content like this, and your suggestions on stuff you want to see really goes a long way towards the type of content that me and my other community members will be making in the future. We want to do a lot more cube content. We want to show off what our cubes are made of and what kind of decks you can put together. So thanks for the feedback on that. Also, you can find our Discord community in the description below this video. So you can join the Discord, you can participate, or I'm sorry, you can join the Discord, participate in our bi-weekly drafts, and you can join our next Roto Draft, which will be starting up after we're finished with the matches for this one. So let's go ahead and talk about what a Roto Draft is real quick. So, rotisserie draft, for those who don't know, is when you take an entire set, a cube, whatever you're going to be drafting, and you lay the entire cube face up on the table. It's not the most practical thing to do in paper because a lot of cubes are somewhere between 360 to 540 cards, and just laying all those cards out for everybody to see is already a hassle. But when you do it digitally, you just get to have a spreadsheet with the entire cube list on it, and you randomize the order of the players. So we've got the 10 players that we had for our rotisserie draft, and they make picks. It starts off, you can see Theo was our first drafter of the table. He had his pick of the litter. Out of all 450 cards in the cube, he got to first pick whatever he felt was the strongest and would give him the best chance of winning. He decided to go with Golos, which is a perfectly defensible first pick. And then it snakes around. So Theo first picks Golos. Masapo first picks Nissa, who shakes the world. Johnny, in typical Johnny fashion, takes 6 mana mono black Liliana. I was fourth. Fourth is a really awkward spot to be in, and we'll talk about why. But I decided, I think I was busy that day. I didn't really have a set thing I wanted to do in mind. So I took the Fabled Passage and tried to keep myself open, and you'll see kind of how that ended up panning out. Liam took Ugin the Spirit Dragon, which might be the best card in the cube. Perfectly defensible. Chris, I think, had a game plan from the very beginning. He wanted to end up in a blue-black tempo deck, and he decided to snatch up Thoughtseize because that card tends to go pretty well. Goat Planet, you'll see Goat Planet kind of had his pick of the litter as well. He managed to stay in mono red the whole time, was very uncontested for basically the entire draft. He started off with Embercleave, and then when it came back around to him, he took the Great Henge, and you can see he just dropped off green. Green was hotly contested this draft. We had, I don't know, something like 7 green players, which makes my third pick, Gilded Goose, a lot worse of a pick than it otherwise could have been. Lucas started off with a Luminous Broodmoth, followed by Nick, who took Starnheim Unleashed, and there was like this little overlap right from the beginning of 2 players taking strong mid-range white cards, so there was a little bit of contention there, even though you can see it kind of panned out in different ways. And then Mop Beeble, who had the honor of being the last pick player, got to double pick, because that's the way it works. In a snake draft, in a rotisserie draft, you go all the way around, and once you hit the last drafter, they get to double pick before it comes back around to the original player, who then gets to double pick again. So since you're farthest out, you get to make up for being the last person to draft by drafting 2 cards. Mop Beeble took Brazen Borrower and Shark Typhoon and kind of firmly planted his foot in a blue tempo / control deck. You can see it got a little bit wonky down the way, so we'll see how that deck ends up playing out. I'm kind of excited for that, but yeah, this is how it goes. You keep snaking back and forth, back and forth, back and forth with the entire card pool in front of you, and you just draft your own deck. It leads to a lot of rivalries and things like that, where you kind of have to guess how long a card is gonna stick around before someone takes it. You can see that a lot. Me being right next to Johnny, Johnny ended up taking cards like Turgid, God of Fright, which are cards that I would have wanted in my deck, but I thought Turgid would go a little bit later, and then once Johnny took it, it's off the table for me. I can no longer play it. But yeah, all the cards you see here are part of the Unrestricted Cube. If you want to draft with us, we draft Unrestricted Cube Wednesday nights at 7 Eastern and Pacific time. If you want to participate in another Roto draft where you get to do this sort of thing, it does take about a week, maybe 2 weeks for the draft process to actually pan out. 10 players all trying to schedule a time doesn't really work out, so you really make your picks based on whenever you conveniently can. But come join us for it. It's really fun. This is a really cool mental exercise in how to draft when everything's on the table in front of you and you know every card in a particular set or cube is going to be represented at some point in the draft. And it's really fun to see the decks that turn out here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and showcase my deck, since we'll be playing with my deck for the videos that I'm making here. I'm going to showcase what I came up with and look at the sideboard and stuff like that. And this is what we'll be playing with, and then we'll showcase our opponent's decks as we actually get into some matches. And my plan is to record all of the matches from my perspective against each of the other opponents. So I ended up on what is basically a Rakdos Aristocrats deck. There's some white in here, so it's more Mardu than anything else. And I also have Korvold, which I couldn't cut. It became apparent from the spreadsheet that green was not going to benefit me very much. I had an early Overgrown Tomb, an early Gilded Goose, and an early Collected Company, and then I realized after getting pretty far into the draft that green just doesn't provide much for the Aristocrat-style deck in this cube. So I decided to stick with Korvold because I'd already taken it at that point, but decided not to go into green much further and ended up actually cutting some of my early picks, which hurts quite a bit. But I did get a lot of the cards that you really want for the Aristocrat-style decks. First off, there's Woe Strider, Yahenni, and the new Immersturm Predator as your free sack outlets, and these are some of the most important cards in this style of deck. Just being able to sacrifice something for free is really good when it comes to playing against board wipes, which these decks tend to be pretty soft against. I do have a lot of recursion in the deck. I have cards like Scrap Heap Scrounger and Call of the Death Dweller, as well as Immersturm Predator and Yahenni, which can protect themselves. I want to try out the new Kaya. I want to try out Korvold. I'm not convinced these cards are excellent, and Korvold's actually probably not going to be in the cube much longer unless we're completely impressed by it here, but this is the card that I most wanted to play with. Korvold and Immersturm Predator are kind of the backbone of the deck that I decided I wanted to draft when we got into this. The rest of it is your typical Aristocrat-style deck. We have Bastion of Remembrance, Judith, Blood Artist, and Cruel Celebrant as all of our Blood Artist effects. I think we got every single Blood Artist effect that we have available in the cube. I'm a little light on removal. I have Angrath's Rampage and Perforos's Intervention, and then at 5 I have Kaya, but you'll see there's not a lot else as far as removal goes, right? We have Plague Crafter, which isn't very reliable. But our game plan is going to be pretty simple. We want to dump little bodies on the board. We want to take advantage of our Aristocrat-style effects to just drain our opponent out. This is the type of deck that doesn't really need to attack to win. In fact, we're not really looking to attack to win because we're going to be playing against a lot of these green decks. We're looking to just outvalue our opponent over the course of a longer game. We're going to have a lot of trouble against extremely quick decks and some of the type of decks that can peel our hands apart. Like Chris's deck should be pretty tough matchup for us. Goat Planet's mono red deck should be a pretty tough matchup. As far as the sideboard goes, we've got a couple things going on. I decided not to start Pillar of Flame because if you go look at the decks that are being represented, Pillar of Flame is pretty bad against at least half of the pool. People playing just top-end creatures and not a lot of small dorks and stuff like that. So I decided to keep Pillar of Flame as a sideboard option. Same with Dreadhorde Invasion. This card would be really good in my deck, but it's pretty bad game 1 or any game if you end up on the draw. So I'd rather not have it in my main board and then bring it in if I know I'm going to be on the play for future games. In addition to that, if I end up against another aggro deck, which aggro decks are going to be faster at doing what they do than my deck is, then I don't really want this card in my deck at all, so I decided to cut it. Legion Warboss, I figured I could bring in against decks that are going to struggle a little bit more with aggro, but I didn't want to main deck it because, honestly, cuts had to be made, and you got to make your cuts somewhere. All of the Boros stuff was just kind of last pick stuff that we didn't really need. It just wasn't interesting to anybody. So Boros could have been drafted probably pretty easily, but Boros is not a very popular archetype within our community at the moment. Untethered Express I picked up extremely late in the draft, and I do like this as a sideboard option against control decks because it's kind of hard for them to kill this card sometimes. If they're relying on sweepers, this is a nice option to have as a card that really just can't get swept by sorcery speed removal. God Eternal Bantu could be in my main deck over, say, Kaya, and it would be fine, but I figured I didn't want too many 5-drops, and these are the ones I'm more excited about actually trying out. So we can switch Bantu out with things if we feel like those aren't going to be that good. And then finally, Command the Dread Horde as a big finisher type card that could possibly be good in my deck, but I do need to make sure I'm not against an aggressive deck before I go casting this, because honestly, if I'm playing against Go Planet and Command the Dread Horde is in my hand at any point, it's kind of a dead card. So that's the name of the game here. We're going to try to aristocrats people out. I will do one match per video here, and I'll make it an entire playlist. So if you're watching this, this is just the intro, and then the next video should have match number 1, so on and so forth. That's the name of the game. That's the game plan. We're going to try it out. When I start each video, I will show you what the opponent's playing, because deck lists are available to everybody, and we'll kind of go over our initial strategy against that deck and see how we do. It's all casual, it's all for fun, so no bad feelings. If we go 0-9 with this deck, then so be it, but we'll pick up a couple wins here and there, and hopefully the game plan comes together, because I felt like I got the backbone of everything I needed to make the Aristocrats package work. It's just the matchups that worry me a little bit. So that's going to do it. This has been Timothy with Jank Diver Gaming. Stay tuned for more roto drafts. And again, if you want to join this Discord community and participate in something like this, there are links in the description below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you all in match number 1.